Well, it's still raining, and I still feel like channeling. So let's try this Mercury thing again. I find it's helpful to just relax. You don't have to change your pattern of breathing, but you will find that you're ending up, you know, doing exactly what I'm doing, trying to crack the neck, and everything sort of kind of shakes out all at once. Pardon me. So, I don't need to really breathe in any particular pattern because when Mercury is going to come into my body, he's going to breathe like I do. Um, the type of spiritual channeling that I'm doing is not one that involves preparing oneself quite a bit because I am channeling spirits who are used to jumping in and out of people very quickly. They're used to giving humans advice firsthand about trades or crafts, um, skills. For instance, metalworking or alchemy or chemistry, mathematics. These are all disciplines. And so a lot of these spirits are quite used to just coming in, doing the task, saying whatever while they're doing the task, and then once the task is done, they're gone. And while they're doing the task, if you engage them in conversation, you might find out some very interesting things. You also might find out that they're not very good at conversation. They're just good at soldering wood. Um, so when it comes to Mercury, he's good at teaching. So that's one reason why I decided, why don't we just go for Mercury? So, no special breathing. Mercury doesn't breathe special. Not in my experience. What's important is that Mercury is a messenger. And so I would always suggest starting with Mercury if you have nowhere else to start because it's like wondering where do you start traveling and then just starting with the doorway, the nearest doorway available to you. You have passed through that, then you've traveled. You have to go through the door to get anywhere. So, when it comes to a god of travel and merchants, all you really have to do is just let your mind start wandering. Mercury's helmet has wings, and that really helps convey the mind taking flight. The wings of the mind stretching out and the forces of the mind coming into motion and setting power into being. Mercury is always going to involve three sides. There will be the sun side, there will be the dark side, and then there will be the moon side. The sun side is the side that's facing the sun, of course, and that's going to be completely exposed to the light, extremely, extremely bright, high contrast. No room for any sort of gray value whatsoever. It will be white or it will be completely shadows in contrast because the angle means that it can't get into some sort of crevasse. On the night side, in fact, I would say that the night side, that would be the star side, because it's not that everything is completely dark. It's that on the side that faces away from the sun, Mercury is able to look out at the rest of the universe and into space and at all of the stars and at all of his siblings following behind him. the oldest and the smallest and the first in line. And I think maybe the fastest 88-day orbit around the sun. Mercury is about reasoning through things just as much as it is about jumping around to the next thing. One thing about being a god of travel, about being a planet that is the messenger, that sometimes runs backwards a third of the time, from our vantage point at least, you get both sides. It doesn't mean that every gain is reduced by a loss. It simply means that if you're going to gain something that you want. If you're going to lose something that you don't want. You're going to decrease something that you want decreased. Usually going retrograde is about looking back to the past. So instead of thinking about it as a negative or thinking about it as a minus, you could think about 0 being you right now in the present moment, the present reality. 0 is like barely there on a number line. And then the positive numbers to the right of the 0, those keep on increasing as you go to the right, basically into infinity. There's no limit to how far you can go up. And then to the left of the 0, you have the negative numbers decreasing as you go to the left. There's no limit to how far you can go down. And you basically just take that perspective and say, all right, what's being tracked by the numbers? If you're tracking years, if you're tracking time by the numbers, then you use negative numbers to look back. You reflect, you remember, you just refer to what's recalled. And that's all you really need to do. It's an echo. It's history. It's a timestamp. Whereas big numbers that are positive, those are in the future, which means it's always about getting your hopes up. If you want to keep approaching those, then realize that the journey is going to be upwards. So get your hopes up. Not trying to do any sort of power of positive thinking, more just trying to set your expectations. If you're trying to climb a mountain, then expect a journey upwards. If you're wanting to complete the journey, then you should be hopeful about getting up there, because if you're not looking forward to it and you don't have a very good outlook about whether or not you're going to be able to complete the journey, then it's quite possible that it's not going to be a successful journey. In fact, it's quite possible that your misgivings may be you being prescient. You might know that the weather will be bad. You might know that it's a bad time to climb this particular mountain. Trust your intuition. Knowing the difference between anxiety and intuition is very important. Anxiety is about your hesitancy and your concerns. And all you really have to do is say, all right, I seem to have concerns. What are my concerns? And then you simply just list out your concerns. Give your own self space. Hold space is the term I have heard. Hold space for the part of yourself that is having anxiety, and let it air its grievances, and then tell it that you understand, and that sounds awful. And then from there, just see where you can go. But the part of yourself that is anxious, that has unwanted thoughts about disaster, that assumes that the worst in a situation will happen because it has no other imagination for anything else, that part, ask it what it cares about. Ask it what its concerns are. And listen. sometimes it will be absurd. And you can say, hey, I'm not sure if that's really something that will actually happen in reality. And maybe we want to reconsider how worried we should get about this. Then the anxiety is heard, and it has given a chance to realize, like, oh, I see, the world's different than I expected. Well then, I'll move on. Thanks for listening to me. And that's all. You can simply just let it have feelings, and then let it walk away on its own. This isn't going to work for everything. Brain chemistry is probably driving you insane. I'm a planet. I have entirely different concerns. But there is a sun on one side and the infinite void of space on the other side. And the only thing that tempers between them is a tiny rim of this one area where the temperature between the two is exactly in the middle. This one silver rim around the whole of me. That is the moon side, the twilight side, the silver side. That is the edge of reason. That is the voice that can listen with both ears. And that silver rim, that is the edge of your knife. It is always there. And you could call it the measure of your mind. Okay, well, he sort of just ejected. He was done. That was really fun. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you either learned something from it, or um, at least enjoyed whatever that was. I want to say, just as somebody who is channeling, I don't want to just demonstrate spirits. I also want to talk about the end where I'm experiencing things, and I really don't remember much of what he said. I I remember the stuff towards the end, but it's very hard to access any memory of what was said other than the beginning and the end. The stuff in the middle, I can say that in the process of speaking, it's kind of like while I was speaking, there was really, like, the words weren't really coming from my brain creating them. It's just more like they seemed to just be queued up about like two or three words in a batch or in a burst, and it would just sort of come. One of the terms that my friend Eric Roth, who's also here on YouTube, I should link him in the description. Um, he calls it a transmission. Whenever you get information like this, and I think that's very apt in astrology. He's an astrologer. Um, Considering that I'm basically receiving communications from Mercury, a planet, a transmission would be how you would get that. It would be some sort of signal sending and receiving. And thinking about it in those functions makes it a lot more tangible. And it also just helps me think about, say, my brain as a radio receiver. And it also helps me remember that radio receivers are equipment that needs upkeep and maintenance, and this radio receiver needs a snack. So, thanks for being with me on this journey. See you later.